Hey guys, and welcome to a quick video on a recent positional masterpiece by Wesley So. You see, basically, I have a session in 15 minutes, so squeezing a quick training video with the game between Lenier Dominguez against Wesley So, not from the US Championship, but from the FIDE Grand Prix in Berlin. Kind of funny, right, that they travel all the way to Germany just to play when they were, basically next door neighbours. But anyway, the game went castles, knight f6, d3, all standard theory. A5 is kind of a modern trend, if you like, based on the match between Nepomniachtchi and Carlsen, where in the last game of the match, Carlsen played this bishop a7, using this kind of a look for the king, like with a6, but where you're not letting white go a4, b4 so easily. So white goes knight bd2, not trying to punish the move order, but just going for normal kind of positions. Castles, h3, bishop e6, saying that if white tries to go for the normal knight f1, g3, then the pawns get doubled this way. Or if they take, then yeah, you get a very nice counterplay with knight h5, knight f4. Of course, here it helps quite a lot that white has played the move h3 already, as it means that when a knight does get to f4, you don't have just g3 to kick the knight, right? Because h3 would be on in that case. And by the way, if by some miracle this video does end up on YouTube, welcome aboard, and do make sure to subscribe. The game instead went bishop to b5, knight in 7, d4, knight g6. It's all pretty standard. White on paper has a nice looking center and some advantage, but actually it's not so easy because you see white can't so easily play knight f1 and just harmonize the pieces. If he does go knight f1 in this position, black can even just play something like take, and just d5. And having that knight on the e4 square kind of makes up for the fact that white has this extra space, because we've got moves like f6 and even potentially c5 to undermine the space and give black very good piece play, while white is, of course, still catching up with developing the pieces, yeah. So that would be about equal. White played move bishop a4 instead, wanting to play kind of as a waiting move, right? C6 is not coming with tempo attacking the bishop anymore. But if black goes knight h5 is in the game, knight f1, and suddenly, you don't have ed4, d5 anymore, right? But what you do have is you do have knight hf4, and we see that having the knight on this strong f4 point is kind of decent compensation for white having space in the center. But here is where Wesley So comes up with a really incredible idea. You see, at first the computer wants to go for moves like c6 and just play very safely, or even queen c8, trying to go for some bishop h3, but it's a little bit, coffee house to do this. But So comes up with what I consider to be an even better idea. He plays the move e takes d4, and if white were to go cd4, you're just going to play a move like c6, or even indeed a move like d5, where you're able to kind of fix the d4 pawn as a weakness, and because you've got the strong knight on f4 and the ability to go like e5, f6 to undermine their center, then basically black is not exactly worse in such a position. The computer wants to play bishop f4, but okay, then you don't have the problem of the superfluous knight on g6 that also wants to get to f4, yes or yes. So white goes knight d4 instead, wanting to keep a bit more play in the position, but now we see So's very nice positional move, and by the way, this is a good moment to pause the video if you want to try and figure out what Wesley So played as black, as this was a moment where the game started to shift. So he played the move of bishop takes d4. If white goes queen takes d4, there's actually some tricky tactical ideas in the position. You could also just play queen g5 and just kind of line up everything on the king side, h5, h4, and it's clear that black has some attacking chances, even if computer says objectively position is still equal. But, the momentum for black is quite nice in a sense. White goes cd4 instead, which is perhaps the most natural move, to have the pawns side by side in the center. But after d5, we kind of see the problem for white on a practical level, that if you play e5, black can just go queen h4, and suddenly, it's very hard to get out of stuff like knight g2, queen h3, knight h4, and it's a very, crazy house style attack on those light squares. In fact, it's so crazy that Stockfish is not letting me draw the arrows to show you how to beat it as such. It wants to keep those free 600 rating secrets to itself. But seriously though, even if white, let's say, doesn't play e5, still the position is very decent for black. Because at some point you're going to play d takes e4. Let's say, for example, white goes bishop c2 just to keep the tension. I mean, this position here is absolutely not worse for black, yeah? Like rook e4 to attack the knight. Okay, you just go knight d5. You've got a good solid blockade against the isolate queen's pawn on d4, which does fully compensate for the bishop pair. And at the end of the day, position is about equal. Some may try to argue white has some tiny sort of pull, but objectively, I don't think it's anything special. White goes queen f3 instead, which is quite a principled move here, you know, attacking the knight. You could defend it with queen h4 or queen f6. In the game, So plays queen to f6. And in this case, well, you're not just threatening knight takes h3 to win the pawn, but in some lines you might also be threatening queen d4 and hitting the bishop. So it's saying a few little problems here, and, you know, a move like bishop d1, which is the current suggestion of my engine, my supercomputer, or more precise, my laptop, well, it looks like a very weird move as well, right, to put the bishop back on this square. But it's to avoid this idea of playing queen d4 and also to defend the queen against knight 3. So it is one way which you can defend both the threats. But even then after c6, I mean, if they go e5, you've still got queen h4, f6 attacking ideas. But if you don't play e5, yeah, black at some point will just go queen h4 take, put a piece of blockade on d5, and black is just rock solid. Well, in the game, white actually played bishop d1, and black in fact played a move queen h4, which is also fine. We had bishop to d2, we had pawn to c6, and yeah, rook c1. You know, white is playing all very natural moves, right? Make sure all of the pieces are developed. But somehow black has got some very clear play, and I think that after the move f5 that So played in the game, I feel that already the position is somehow easier to play for black. You see, if white plays e5, black can just go for bishop d7, for example, and, you know, the knight can go to e6 potentially and put some pressure on the pawn. Okay, probably objectively, position is still quite decent for white, and, well, maybe bishop d7 is not the most precise move order. Maybe it would be more precise maybe to go rook e8 and then, you know, do it this way, kind of saying that the pawn a5 is small fry compared to the weakness of d4. But okay, in general, black is doing fine here, you could say, with ideas of being able to, you know, attack d4, push f4, and this kind of thing. White goes ef5 instead in the game. And after bishop takes f5, knight takes f5, well, we see that, while from a computer perspective, the position is still equal, it's quite clear that black's pieces are very well positioned for the attack on the king, right? All it takes one move, rook af8, and all of the pieces are suddenly in the attack. And so here what white had to do is he had to play bishop c2, and this, by the way, takes absolute nerves of steel, you know, to play this g3 and to let black take a pawn with check. But it turns out after king f1 that actually it kind of works, because then, in that case, basically, the queen is under attack and the rook is under attack. So white does get the material back, and it turns out that, you know, after captures, captures, I mean, the position is still relatively close to balanced. You know, the material is about equal. White is managing to coordinate, but the knights are still a little bit tricky after queen g4, like queen h3, knight f3. Yeah, black definitely has sufficient counterplay in this sort of position. But instead, white goes queen to g3. Just let me click here, dumb stockfish. Okay, queen to g3, but this bailout is actually a mistake. And Wesley So demonstrates why very well in the game. Take, knight d3. And this is the part where actually it's funny because actually just after this video, I'm actually going to be doing a session on endgame mastery for my students of my 2000 plus to chess master in 90 days program, which of course you might see the link, you know, or rather the thing on the video at the bottom as such. But yeah, basically, this kind of fits in well with this, because after bishop c2, there is a very important move for black, without which you would your knight would be trapped and you would be regretting why on earth you played into this line. But of course, there is a trick, rook f2. Well done, by the way, if you spot it in advance. If white tries to defend one of the rooks, we just take the other one, yeah, but after bishop takes d3, computer is saying you have to be a bit tricky and probably play rook e3, you know, saying that you can't really take so easily because the rook is on, but if rook d2, yeah, you can still say that you are better in this position, because, I mean, you are effectively, you know, a pawn up because of the double pawns and attack here. But if white goes rook e1, he can probably still hold this if he plays correctly, but of course, black is the one with all the chances. And the imbalance between the structure and the bishop versus knight, of course, gives good chance for the stronger player to win it still, in this case. At least with your black and the stronger player. Instead, white plays a more automatic bishop d3, and The problem with this move, though, is that trading off the bishop for knight and going a rook ending doesn't actually give you any drawing chances, unfortunately. Because white's pawns are very weak, and even the king is also very weak in this kind of position, yeah? I mean, white can't defend everything at once, and so he tries to counterattack with rook e7. But now black is up a pawn, and, you know, rook f1, rook f8, you're kind of like, okay, you've got nothing here as white. White goes rook c1, kind of for lack of a better idea, but by this point it's more a mopping up procedure, rook f8, and yeah, white somehow didn't have, let's say, the willingness to admit the mistake and play rook e2, and okay, to be honest, the ending is still lost anyway, not just because black is a pawn up there, but also because, I mean, you know, your structure is so much better. You may as well be 2 pawns up at this point, quite frankly. You know, you can always offer a trade of rooks, because the pawning will always be winning for black. But white goes rook d7, and yeah, rook ff2, and white is hoping for some kind of miracle with a perpetual check, but it's not coming, because black can now play a very nice move. King to h7, and the king can sort of run away out of the checks to g5, yeah? Game ended h4, king h6. Your rook e5 is kind of a desperation at this point. Rook bf2 is played, you know, just taking a pawn with the windmill, because we are threatening a mate both ways. So king f1, rook h2, just maximizing the distance between the rooks to the king. So here, here, here. King g1, and now that this pawn is protected, black now plays rook hd2 with the idea of either giving mates, or taking the pawn, or even just queening the a-pawn as white's rooks are in no position to stop it. And this is why Dominguez resigned from this position. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. It was kind of a fun little lesson. I think it fit quite well with how to play this kind of positional masterpiece and how to strategically outplay the opponent by creating this sort of imbalance in the structure. It would actually be a very good game for the practical chess mastery component of my 2000 plus to chess master in 90 days program. And by the way, if you do think that you would be a good fit, that if you are rated 2000 plus FIDE and you do really want to become a chess master a lot more quickly than if you were just doing it on your own. Well, to be fair, if you're doing it on your own, you're probably not going to get there at all. You really do need the right help to get to that master title. So yeah, if that's something that interests you, just send me a DM. That way I'll make sure to, you know, send you the link to, you know, book a free call. I mean, I know that what some of you are thinking, like, free call with a grandmaster, it's too good to be true. But if you're able to hold your skepticism just for one little moment, then yeah, I mean, if you got a chance to learn for free from a GM, like, why not take it, you know? The opportunity is there, and let's see if you're up for it. I'll see you in the next video.